And welcome to SMETV. I'm your host, Angela Vithulkis. Welcome to our 5 in 5 show. That's 5 tips in 5 minutes, plus a little bit about our expert. Remember of course, you must remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can share us and like all our other great shows and our great 5 in 5 series. Remember to like or comment. You can jump in right now if you like, and you can just put something underneath and say, yay, we love this. Today we're asking, how does practicing self-care build more resilience for SMEs? You don't ask this alone, you bring in experts to talk about it. So joining us today with her 5 tips on resilience is Michele Gennoe, founder and principal consultant at On Purpose Transformation. Hello again, Michele, how are you?
Hello, Angela. Thank you very much for having me.
Look, we said a little bit off air that resilience and self-care, it feels like a new phenomena. It's not a new phenomena. We also agreed that we weren't going to touch a lot on mental health, but that self-care is around that. And if you do build that self-care, focusing a little bit on your mental health and well-being, that's where you get the resilience from.
Exactly. So what's happened is there's been such a shift and a focus now on how are people coping. So we haven't probably talked in that same way that we haven't talked about self-care and resilience as much. We haven't talked about how people are coping with working.
Yep.
So that's kind of then led to, well, people aren't necessarily coping and they aren't coping with some of the stresses. But I think a lot of those underlying issues were already there. But what's happened with COVID and those changes in the ways that we work, it's now given permission, in a sense, to have these types of conversations, as well as obviously, you know, some of the suicide rates and the domestic violence rates, all of these things, which again aren't new, but have been given a lot more public attention and a lot more public scrutiny than they have.
I think the interesting thing there as well is that we've suddenly linked the resilience to productivity. And I think that's where, cynically I'm saying now, that's why we've been allowed to have more of a conversation from this, because with more people working from home, productivity has declined or hasn't declined, whichever way you look at it. And one of those reasons is definitely about that self-care and the resilience and the mental health of people who are isolated. So it's not a bad thing, but it's not a new thing.
Exactly. And organisations were quite happy to talk about absenteeism, because yes, HR departments could have numbers, could have statistics about how often people were away, but all of the statistics about presenteeism, which was being there but not necessarily being productive, that was put in the too hard basket. Whereas as soon as people were asked to be outside of the office and their productivity was on show in team meetings and on show very, very clearly to managers and to everybody else, that absenteeism or presenteeism was suddenly on show as well. So it was much harder to hide how difficult people may have been finding their work or their situation.
So Michele, you're known for your street smart wisdom, and you've got experience in leading organisations and individuals through change. But tell me, have you found it easier dealing with SMEs compared to individuals in large organisations? Who gets the prize for being just that little bit tougher to deal with?
I think SMEs are a harder group to deal with, and I say that in a very loving and passionate way.
I would have said to you, you were lying if you said the other way around. We're definitely much harder to deal with.
Yeah, and one of the key reasons for that is the SME is the business. So that you can't find anybody more passionate about what they're doing and about their business than the SME. Whereas there's still a bit of detachment between an employee and a company, or a senior, even if they're a senior person, they're still doing a role. If the company was sold out from underneath them, they would be upset, but they haven't lost their child, their baby. For SMEs, it's your child, it's your baby.
It's another limb, it's another part of your life. I always refer to my business like it's another person. It has its own, it tells me what it wants to do, and very rarely do we agree on both of those things. Okay, so we're on the clock. We're going to go with 5 tips, 5 in 5, how practicing self-care will build more resilience for SMEs. Okay, number 1, I love this one, daily habits.
So daily habits are so important, especially with SMEs where you're always working to a deadline and those deadlines never end, and that's the given. That's your world. That's our world. We're always chasing that next deadline. So creating daily habits, and this is as simple as I, for example, have an alarm on my phone so that a couple of times a day I stop and do some stretching at that time. So these aren't difficult tips, they're just tips that you need to actually implement, and then they become a daily habit, and they become things that you can actually put in there to make sure that you get that mental break and that physical break, all of the different breaks that you need to then be performing at your best for the rest of the day.
Number 2, I hope I've demonstrated this to you today, listening.
Well, listening is so important. And I'm talking about a deeper listening. So you're actually hearing what your body's saying to you, and you're hearing when you're physically or mentally tired. Now, one of the problems with SMEs, with those deadlines, etc., is that we keep pushing ourselves. Now, for many people, even if you have other staff, you're still the business, and your health is directly correlated to the success or otherwise of the business. So actually taking the time out and creating those opportunities where you're listening to what's going on in your body and then acting on it, and just going, okay, I feel a bit tired. I still have to finish this, but I'm just going to go and walk out and get some fresh air for 5 minutes. Yeah. And as we all know, when you actually give in and go, okay, I'm going to go for that walk for 5 minutes, you come back so refreshed. So listening to your body, and if it says, I'm just too tired, or I need some fresh air, I need a break, just doing that and making it okay, not beating yourself up, but just making it okay.
Well, you're more productive and more efficient if you're not exhausted. So that's the key there. That's, you know, how much more productive you want to be. It's not, you don't just push through for the sake of pushing through. Right. Number 3, focus on your why.
So as we've been talking about, we have so many things and tasks and activities, and it can be hard sometimes when you just feel like you're in a bit of a trudge. And those are the times where you need to have a strong enough why, and focusing on why you're doing it. But for some people, it can be that they're doing it to have the family world that they want, whether it's with a partner or with children. They're doing it because they want to build a business that they can actually then sell when they're older and have that money to create a lifestyle that they want. People have different reasons for being in their own business, and the most important thing is to actually surround yourself again. Have pictures on your laptop, have pictures on your phone that remind you why you're doing it. Some people use vision boards, which is, you know, another way of having those aspirational elements of what you want to get or create out of what you're doing. But the core why is it that you're here? Why is it that you're doing what you're doing? Because it's all opportunity cost. You could be doing something else, you could be working for somebody else, but you're not. You're doing this because you're very passionate, and just keeping those reminders of your why around can really help to keep going when it gets a little bit tough.
And help you build up that resilience. Yeah. Number 4, clearing negative thoughts. Here is a challenge. Here is the challenge.
It is. I mean, everybody has those voices inside that can say, you can't do this, or you're too slow, or you're this, or you're that. And sometimes if you're working on your own for long periods of time, which many SMEs are, if that's the only other voice is the voice that you're hearing in your head saying, oh, they're never going to buy this, they're never going to like this, they're never going to appreciate all of the work that you've put into this. It's, again, not saying, oh, go away, I hate you to those voices, but recognizing that there's a part of you that isn't necessarily lined up or happy with what you're doing, and just talking to it and saying as kindly as you can, thank you for your opinion, but I'm not going to listen to you now. I'm going to keep focused on my why. I'm going to keep focused on where I'm going. I'm going to keep focused on what I want to be doing and the positive thoughts and the positive vision.
I'm always fascinated by how powerful those negative thoughts can be to people, and that sometimes that is the only difference between success and failure.
Oh, exactly.
It comes down to that. It's an extraordinary phenomena how powerful negative thoughts are and how powerful positive thoughts are. So if I had to choose which one I'd prefer, I know which one I want, but it's that it's that inside voice that no one else sees that for some reason we give a little bit more credibility to. Why do we do that, Michele?
Well, a part of it is that it's conditioning. So a lot of it is conditioning that, especially Australia, where we have the tall poppy syndrome and other elements of the culture that say don't stand out, don't make yourself above or better or different, more different, just don't be different to everybody else. And as soon as you start to step outside of that comfort zone, and that stepping out is how you become successful, it's how you create growth and momentum about what you're doing. But it's those stepping outs that are also kind of breaking away from a lot of the cultural conditioning that we have here. And so I encourage people, I talk about thoughts as train tracks. And so when you start going down that train track of the negative thoughts and the negative thinking, to actually stop, imagine that you're somewhere else down at the beach, and then try to, as much as possible, go down a different thought process so that you can actually keep pattern, because they're patterns, pattern interrupting those negative thoughts, and keep focusing back on what is it that you want, why you're doing what you're doing, and to build those more positive train tracks so that you can build more positive habits each day in everything that you're doing.
Tip number 5, social.
So we've just been talking about negative thoughts. One of the most positive things you can also do is surround yourself with your tribe. So surround yourself with other business owners that go, I just can't shut up this negative thought that's telling me I can't do X, Y, Z. And when you share that with others, they go, hey, actually, my negative thought was telling me this. And then it becomes normal, and you recognize, well, actually, many people have this going on in their lives. It's not just me. And it makes it easier when you're socializing to get referrals from people that you can then go, oh, okay, I've already had this referred to me, so I have a degree of trust. I don't have to start off from scratch. But more importantly, you're surrounding yourself with other people that are going on a similar journey. And that's even more important nowadays, where with so much changing and so much going on so quickly, you need to be around a strong group of people that are on that journey as well. And then you're in it, like we keep hearing at the moment, but you're in it together.
It's that social connectivity, isn't it, that helps build your own resilience, because it's so lonely as an SME. Quite often we feel like we're the only ones in this world trying to overcome so many things. And again, interestingly enough, that links back into those negative thoughts. And if you share that, what's happening with someone else, you actually take away the power of that, don't you? Just a little bit more, because it's when you hear that someone else has those same thoughts, sometimes you think, oh, so that's a little bit more normal than not normal.
It's so powerful and so simple. When you suddenly share with somebody what's going on for you, and then they have that empathy and can share back what's going on for them, and it's so similar, you then reach this point where, okay, and there's nothing stronger for building your resilience than feeling like you're not alone. Other people are having those similar thoughts. You can even have, in social, you could have mini virtual coffee chats like what we're doing now, where you set a time aside and you connect in with those people. And every time, and I'm in a number of these groups, and every time we get together, it's like, I'm frantically doing this and I'm frantically doing that. But you also hear all these gems. So you hear about, photographers that you can use, or you hear about other different resources, and it cuts out that time that you may have been researching it yourself. So even though it may feel at the time like, I shouldn't be doing this, I should be doing real work, you're actually still then ticking off a number of boxes, especially around resilience and building your resilience while still doing work.
So we've just heard 5 great tips on how to help build that resilience. The main thing in your business, On Purpose Transformation, while I was looking through what you do, the rest of your team does, and the services that you offer, the biggest thing that came through to me was the emphasis that you put on fun.
Exactly. If you're not having fun, then the people change and grow the most.
Yep.
And these can be quite difficult topics, but the more that you laugh about them, I laugh about myself all the time. I laugh about my humanness. When I talk about those negative thoughts, or when I talk about difficult situations, I just like to laugh. And I think that having fun and building resilience, even in a way that is creating fun, means that those habits stick. having things stick and become things that you can do every day to live with more joy and more lightness in your life means that you as a person can keep growing, and then your business can keep growing. And it is those cycles that we've talked about. The more you build a little bit of resilience and lean into those habits a little bit more, the more energy you have and the more focus you have in your business, but then you also build more resilience and so on.
On that note, thank you very much. We appreciate you joining us today and for your 5 tips as well. Thank you very much, Michele. To all our viewers and watchers out there, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can share this interview and so many other great ones. A big shout out to the SME Association for their support of this channel. And if you would like to reach us with any of your ideas or tips, of course, news@smea.org.au. Thank you so much, Michele. We hope to speak to you again soon.
Thank you, Angela.